now.
Okay, so this is part two of part one we did a couple months ago with, I keep calling you Dr. Brown because I think it's appropriate, but somebody told me that you preferred to not go by Dr. Brown anymore.
That's right. I'm retired. That was 15 years ago. I'm just an
15
old
years
guy.
ago.
I'm just an
Okay.
old guy that likes to talk.
So we have an old guy that likes to talk who's presenting a very intriguing story, and we're listening to part two today, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, looks
Excellent.
good.
Good. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. You remember, of course, the first presentation I gave you, and it was about Mary, who, of course, fell and broke her hip. And the reason she fell was because of a cardiac problem. So today we're going to talk, I'm going to go over some of it again, but I change these presentations every week, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff that's come out that sort of pertains to last presentation, this presentation. So I've packed a whole bunch more stuff in, so you should find it very interesting. So let's go on. So just to read, I'm just going to go over this fairly quickly because I don't want to bore you. But you remember Mary. Mary is a 74-year-old individual who lives at a Silver Ridge Resort, and that's where I live in the winter, except for this year, I'm not going down, and that's a bummer because it's cold up here. So anyway, I certainly envy her. She lived there for about 7 years, and of course she was liked by everyone. And she lived in a park model, like a trailer with an Arizona room, and she always went for walks at 9 a.m. What's significant about Mary is there's nobody at Silver Ridge except that everyone comes between November and April, and very few people live there all year round. Only about 70 out of 700 people live there all year round. So this presents a problem because Mary got into some health problems, as you know, and she didn't, there was nobody around. Mary has, she's been widowed, so she lives by herself. She has a daughter in Palm Desert, pretty good computer skills, and so we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, if we look at Mary's health was actually pretty good. She had a family doctor who looked after her for many years, and she really didn't have many medical problems. She's pretty healthy 74-year-old, which was good. And of course, the problem started when she came back from the mailroom and she had a dizzy spell. Now, as seniors, a lot of us get dizzy spells. Anyway, she got a little tiny dizzy spell, and she had to sit down on this grass here, and that prompted a visit to her doctor the next day. And when her doctor saw her with this dizzy spell, he checked her over and found everything fine. So there's nothing wrong. It was only a little dizzy spell and a very short time. So they decided not to do anything about it. Well, of course, the dizzy spell came back again, and Mary had another dizzy spell. And this time she had to sit down in her lazy boy chair, but it went away. But she went back to see her doctor again. And he said, well, we should do some more testing. All right. This is the second time you've had this. You felt you had to sit down with it. So he recommended some further testing, which he ordered. However, on the Wednesday after her appointment, before the tests were done, she got out of bed about 2:30 in the morning to have a pee. And when she got off the toilet after having her pee, she got this dizzy spell again, and this time she blacked out and she fell to the floor. And as she fell to the floor, she heard a crack, and of course she had broken her hip. But because she now has a broken hip, she couldn't call for emergency or anything like that, and she lay on the floor till she was discovered the next morning by Meg, who came along, or Alice, who came along and found her. If Alice hadn't have found her, she probably would have died. Anyway, Mary got taken to the emergency department and by ambulance, of course, and she was, her blood pressure was very low. She had a very slow pulse, which was a bit odd, and this ended up, she required a pacemaker, and so they put a temporary one in the emergency department and transferred it up to ICU and put a permanent pacemaker in and fixed her hip. So the story about this was, we talked about last time, monitoring your pulse. You want to know whether your pulse is too fast or too slow. And we talked about the different watches and how these devices can monitor your pulse for you. And particularly, we talked about too fast was atrial fibrillation, remember that? And then we talked about too slow. So too slow or too fast, and we want to know if that is there. And we talked about the Apple Watch and a couple of more watches that were coming online that does this for you. And so that's where we left off last time. And so now we're going to pick up from there, and we're going to move ahead. Now, one of the things that's important that Mary should have done and could have done better, she did a lot of things right, but one of the things she needs to do is she needs to have a plan for a medical for a medical emergency. If we don't plan for something, when it happens, things aren't generally going to go well. So it's important that you know, everyone should have a plan for, particularly if you live alone, even if you live with your spouse, you should have a plan. Now, Mary, what were the clues in her history that could be expanded on? Well, Mary lived in a resort that was seasonal, and this presents a huge problem because most of the time, 8 months of the year, there's nobody there. Now, this could also pertain to people living alone in rural areas where one of the spouses has died, and they live now alone in the old family home or whatever, but in a very isolated or rural area. So isolation is a big problem as we get older because of obvious health concerns. Now, Mary has some internet skills, and she has internet in the resort. But this is a huge problem that we're going to talk about. And I talk about this in the new video that I played at the APCUG last Saturday, navigating the post-COVID era. And this is a really big issue, is if you do not have internet. And this is for sure something, if you're a senior and you're moving into more senior years, you really want to stay connected and use some of the technology we're going to talk about today to help you stay in your own home and be safe. That's the most important thing, using technology to stay in your home to be safe. She had a caring daughter, which was great, and she visited, so we'll work her into the treatment plan. And she also had good medical support. You know, a lot of people just never go to the doctor. They never have any sort of real good health care, but Mary did. So that was a good thing. Now, what was Mary's diagnosis? Well, she had a heart problem requiring a pacemaker, which we could have diagnosed earlier if she had had some sort of device on her that would have clued us in. And it really wasn't but this problem, and this problem could have killed her, because when she had the fall, she got into a really bad problem. And she had a fall at night while going to the bathroom. She didn't have any way of contacting people or notifying them with the fall. The fall resulted in a fractured hip, which again is hugely problematic. And then this eventually led to being in shock and being in shock and almost passing away for something that really, if she had the diagnosis made, remember when she had that first dizzy spell on the grass there, if she had captured that by one of the devices we'll talk about, and she could have gone in and seen her doctor and said to the doctor, look, my pulse was 40 when I got the dizzy spell, he would have sent her to the hospital right away. He would have known what the first-year medical student would know what to do. So in those situations, this could have been prevented, right? It could have been prevented by some sort of monitoring device that we could wear. So if we look at smart living solutions, and we're going to talk about this today, there's a big topic, and I'm going to distill it down to sort of personal monitor and health, personal monitoring devices, Internet of Things, peripheral home security, and a thing that we're going to talk about, social communication. I'll talk a bit about that as well. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So one of the things that is these peripheral devices, they can do fall detection and emergency notification. And the Apple Watch, of course, does this very well. Now, I'm always talking about watches, and that's just because I'm sort of interested in watches. But you have to understand that maybe that is not always the best approach for someone who you're worried about falling. And part of the problem with a watch is it's got to be charged, right? So if you got to take it off to charge it, and if you got to remember to put it back on. And if you're having memory problems, you can't remember to put the watch back on, it isn't going to be that helpful, right? And if you always take the watch off at night, another problem. So it may not be that the watch is the best approach. And there are many other companies that have emergency devices that you can carry around your neck. You can push a button and it will call. So the watch may not be perfect for everybody, but it is what we're talking about today. Now the Apple Watch does work well, and we'll talk about the other two watches that we're going to talk about today do the same thing. When you fall, the Apple Watch will ask you if you're okay, and you have I think it's 60 seconds to hit the button here that says I'm okay, or it will contact whoever you have set up for your emergency notification, and that could be a family member, it could be 911, it could be whoever you have set up to have that done. And this is so this would be if Mary had been wearing the watch and she had fallen, then if she didn't hit the I'm okay, help would be coming. And again, the Apple Watch has emergency services available. Now there are a number of apps available on your cell phone that alert will alert people. And this is one of the ones that I looked at, and this is it's free, and it will actually contact up to 5 people. This works through a cell phone, but it works and will contact up to 5 people automatically if you hit the emergency button, and that's free. And there's a lot of apps like this that are available. Now I wanted just to show you because a lot of technology is changing. This is a really changing technology, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, so you don't get confused. What we're talking about is the first part of the watch that we talked about last time was pulse monitoring and atrial fibrillation. Now, these watches, and we're going to talk about 3 today, do a very good job at this. They do measure and diagnose atrial fibrillation and a slow pulse. And because of that, they are called level 2 medical devices, such as to get them certified, they have to have FDA approval. And this is and so it's like an ECG in the hospital. You have to get actually government approval, and they have to prove that these devices work. So there's a legislative or a certification in order to get that app working. The second one that's we're going to talk a little bit about that's coming up will be blood pressure recording. And this is new with the Galaxy Watch 3. We'll talk about that in a minute. And it's coming and will be soon in the United States, but it is being approved in South Korea. And these watches now will accurately measure your blood pressure. But again, this is an FDA approved, so they have to get the app approved again through the FDA to get it certified. I don't expect that'll be a problem. It's already gone through the hoops in South Korea. Now, if you come over here to fall detection, I've got this in yellow. Fall detection has nothing to do with medicine. It has nothing to do with certification or anything like that. So you will see fall detection on a lot of watches, not just the ones we're going to talk about today. You'll see it on a lot of different devices. And some work better than others, but there's really no legislation or certification for the fall detection or emergency notification part of it. So the first 2 do require certification. This doesn't, and that's why you see this on a lot more watches than you do the first 2. Then the one that's coming out later this year, which is the big one, which of course will be the bloodless blood sugar monitoring, and that is the diabetes, and that will be for sure an FDA approved certification. And this is going to be a biggie, and I'll be writing lots of articles about this as it comes along. So it's sort of exciting, and I'm waiting for that. So the 3 watches that are available now, and these have changed a bit since I gave the last talk. These are prices as of 2 weeks ago. These are U.S. prices at Best Buy, and the Apple Watch Series 6 was on for $399. You have to remember that the Apple Watch must be used with an iPhone. It's specific to the Apple environment. So if you don't have an iPhone, you can't use an Apple Watch. But this is about $400. The Galaxy Watch 3 is now fully operational. The cardiac monitoring is all being done. It's the software is being downloaded on the watch. This watch is now fully functional and is a competitor to the Apple Watch. This will work also on an iPhone. So this works on the Apple system and the Android system, but this is the Galaxy Watch 3. And this is $369. It has the atrial fibrillation ECG. It does all the things that we talked about with the other watch. Now, I don't know if you remember my talk, the original talk, I talked about Google buying Fitbit, and Fitbit or Google and taking and hiring away people from AliveCore, which was the company that originally developed a lot of this technology. And they did. And they actually got a watch out and ready to go. And this is certified for atrial fibrillation, blood pressure, not blood pressure, pulse monitoring, the same as the other two watches. So it's fully functional. It's called the Fitbit Sense, and it is $329. So you have 3 watches now that all pretty much do the same thing. And you have, and again, the Fitbit works on all the different platforms. So you have 3 choices now for monitoring if you're interested in that. And this is a little bit how they look, a little bit different. This is the Apple Watch Series 6, and this, and the right one here is the Fitbit Sense. The Samsung Active 2, which was the watch before the Galaxy 3, it's the runner-up to the Galaxy 3. It's a Samsung watch, is actually operational now. It's an interesting option because it's about $100 cheaper than the Galaxy 3. So I think it's about $100 cheaper. They do have the ECG monitoring now running. In fact, I gave this presentation 2 days ago, and one of the members in the audience had bought an Active 2 and had the cardiac monitoring all working. So this is good news. I don't think the fall detection is working yet on the Active 2, but it is. So I think it's about $299 or maybe less than that. You'll have to look at Best Buy, but it does do the cardiac monitoring. Now, the next thing is, which was the big thing announced with Apple this year, was what about measuring your blood oxygen level? And they all do this now. And so I thought I would add what advantage or what advantage it is to measure your blood oxygen. But they all will now measure the amount of oxygen in your blood. And we call this actually, we've done this for many years. We call it pulse oximetry. And this is a little device. And we usually put these, we did this 30, 40 years ago in medicine. This is not a new technology. It usually was a little thing. If you've ever been to the hospital or been in an emergency, we'll put a little thing on the end of your finger, and it measures what your oxygen saturation is. Well, now the watches do this. So how does this actually work? And well, it's sort of interesting to know that. Now, those of you who know a little bit about biology will know that the oxygen in your blood is carried on the hemoglobin molecule. And so as your blood floats around in your body, there's the hemoglobin that has, of course, gone through the lungs is well oxygenated because it's got lots of oxygen in there, right? And then it goes through the body and it gets deoxygenated because we use it up, and it turns and then it comes back again to get more oxygen. Well, the oxygenated blood is redder. It's a color thing. And that's how we figure out how much oxygen is in your blood. It's based on color. The bluer it is, the less oxygen, the redder it is, the more. And that's exactly how it works. And this is normally how we do it. We shine a laser light through your finger, and we can figure that out. And we use different colored lasers to pick up different wavelengths. And there's a formula we can use, and it will tell us what the oxygen level is in your blood. Now, there's a lot of people buying watches because there's a lot of interest about this right now. There's all the wildfires that we've had, a lot of people with respiratory problems, and they're interested in sort of maybe getting some help. There's of course COVID-19, which is a big one everyone wants to talk about now. And should we be monitoring our oxygen level with COVID-19? And of course, people who have respiratory problems or lung conditions, are these devices useful for them? So those are three things that's pretty common. People want to really know a lot about that. Now, probably the people who would benefit mostly from this are super users such as mountain climbers. If you're climbing up there and you don't have any oxygen with you, that would be helpful to know. Free divers who are diving without tanks, it would be helpful, and marathoners. So there are people who maybe this technology would be beneficial for, but aside from that, the question of these devices, since they're really not certified, is how accurate are these oxygen levels, and what are you really going to do with them? And there's a big debate on that, is really how accurate these things are. But this is just give you an idea on, I'm just going to play you this little video, and this is how the Samsung watch works. Oh, can you hear it? Ken, can you hear this?
No. Sounds like it's coming from your speakers. Maybe you need to unshare, reshare with audio.
Oh, I forgot to click on, just a minute, hold on.
Controls for that are at the top without having to.
Yeah, I got it. I think I got it. Just let me replay it. Sorry about that. We'll just take this back. Now, could you hear that?
It was the same. No.
I can barely hear it.
Zoom will automatically tries to adjust the audio to minimize noise. I think the level of your audio is below that threshold, so it's not actually triggering the audio. So you need to make it louder.
All right, it'll be over in just a second here.
Low blood oxygen can cause serious problems for the body. If blood oxygen is at 95%, it means that 95% of the hemoglobin in our blood is carrying oxygen.
Oh, I wasn't sharing it. Just a minute here.
Blood oxygen levels usually range from 95. Oxygen is at.
Can you hear that now?
Yes.
Okay.
Much better.
All right. Sorry. All right. Let's try this one more time.
Hey, have you ever heard of blood oxygen? It's also called SpO2. As you know, no one can live without oxygen. When we breathe it in, it gets delivered to the hemoglobin in our red blood cells and carried throughout our bodies. Blood oxygen measures how much oxygenated hemoglobin is in our blood. If it's high, there's enough oxygen going around the body. It has a positive effect on brain function, immunity, and stamina. But what if it's low? Low blood oxygen can cause serious problems for the body. If blood oxygen is at 95%, it means that 95% of the hemoglobin in our blood is carrying oxygen. Blood oxygen levels usually range from 95 to 100%. Values under 90% are considered low. However, the range may vary depending on the individual's health condition or the surrounding environment. Blood oxygen can help us monitor lung function. This can be especially helpful for those with chronic heart or lung disease. So, how do we measure blood oxygen? With the Galaxy Watch 3, you can measure blood oxygen easily. When measuring blood oxygen, your arm should stay in a fixed position. For accurate measurements, wear the Galaxy Watch 3, 2 finger widths up from your wrist, and make sure the strap is snug so that the watch doesn't move. Then, open the Samsung Health app. Scroll down the list of options and tap on the blood oxygen icon and press the measure button. Don't move until the measuring process is complete. All right, I'm 97%. The mobile Samsung Health app also makes it easier to check your blood oxygen. How about measuring yours too?
So sorry about that. I forgot
Hey,
to share my audio. So that's how these work. And what the value of this really depends on, because we don't know how accurate these actually are. I think that we can talk about it afterwards, some specific things that you might use it for. There are some specific applications, but again, this is not a medical device, and I don't think your physicians would really want to be monitoring your health using this particular device, and it's certainly not certified either. So, but it is interesting, and it is, all three watches will measure your oxygen, which they didn't last year when I gave the talk. All right, we've talked a little bit about fall and medical alert systems. Of course, ADT, Life Alert, there are many different companies that will offer pendants you wear around your neck, or devices that you can have. So it's not just related to watches, and there are a number of different companies that do that. It's interesting. We also have pill dispensers that will connect to Wi-Fi to your phone and tell you when you should be taking your pills. And there's and there's also this is another one that are reminders, and this I think was $34. So there's lots of technology out there to help you. All right, let's talk a little bit now about if you were going to. I know Bill James did a talk recently on home automation. This is similar to that. When you are looking now at maybe thinking about designing your home so you have more of a smart home, maybe it's you're in a situation where you really don't want to go to extended care. You want to really be able to provide more services for yourself in your own home, and you want to set up a sort of a home automation. You want to make yourself more secure and safe, so you could stay at home longer. This will require, and the challenge as we move forward in the post-COVID era, is that you will require a fast and secure internet. Now, this year, there are many options that will be available for you, but it's clear your hotspot won't work. If you have a hotspot or you're using something like that, you need a fast, reliable internet. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see the internet services that you can connect with. And these are the, to start with is DSL. DSL is digital subscriber line. This is actually the old telephone line that was used. It's an old system that's been around. The reason I mentioned DSL is because if you are planning on moving or going into maybe a condo that's been around for a while, it's in a down, we typically found DSL was in urban areas, particularly in downtown areas, because you couldn't go very far from the transmitter site, but it could provide internet to lots of people. But the problem is in large buildings, sometimes what you get coming out of the wall isn't what comes in the front door. So these actually can be quite slow. So you want to make sure that if you are moving to an area in an apartment complex or a condo complex downtown, you want to make sure that you actually measure the actual DSL signal coming out of your apartment or condo before you get there, because you may be very, very sad if you find out you only got 10 megabit download. Cable, of course, you all have cable. You're seeing now a number of friends and techie people that I pal around with have 1 gigabit connection. I got my gigabit connection hooked up last week or 2 weeks ago. And this, you're seeing cable companies now offering, we're going into this whole new technology where it's not 20 megabit download or 30 meg, we have really fast speeds, and you're going to be seeing more of that this year. Those of you who have fiber optic, wonderful, but fiber optic is not as common. Everyone, of course, is looking up in the sky and looking at what's going to happen with Starlink, but it looks as though the beta is out now, and some of the pricing, it looks like it'll be about $100 a month, and it will be probably anywhere between 80 and 150 download. So it's an average speed. It would be and certainly it will be for people who do not have the other options. And of course, the one that I keep talking about, which everyone should be looking at, is the fixed base 5G, which is available now in most areas through your cellular companies. They're all anxious to get you signed up for this. It's very good value, and they're putting out now around 300 megabit download on their fixed base 5G. But they should, once we get into the faster 5G, you should be able to get up to 5 gigabyte download on it. So this is going to be a real fast one. Of course, you come through and you have a modem and router, and that's going to give you a fast internet. So the first thing you should consider if you are hooking your system up is your router. And routers, if you bought a router in the last 3 or 4 years, you'll have a dual band router. And what we mean by a dual band router is it broadcasts on 2 frequencies, 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. Why is that important? Well, it's really not that important. However, now today in this era of Internet of Things, a lot of these devices now work on both frequencies, and they work better on both frequencies. So it is, if you are going to be setting up Internet of Things or home automation or whatever you're going to be doing, please have a look at your router. If it's an old router and it's not a dual band router, it's time to upgrade your router. An aside that has nothing to do with this talk today, a mistake that I see people making all the time is if you have your router sitting next to your laptop, like it may be a foot away, and you're running it on Wi-Fi, this is a bad idea. You should plug it in. Wired is always faster than wireless. So if you have your laptop sitting next to your router, just get an Ethernet cable and plug it in, and don't use Wi-Fi. It always works better. So we have your, I want you just to watch this flow. Bill James went over this in the home automation. This is a bit of the same thing. You have your modem and you have your router, which of course gives you Wi-Fi. We're going to talk about smart home hubs, which is really the way you want to go, because you can connect all your devices through the smart home hub, and this is wired back into your router. And so the idea would be that your devices would work through, like this is the Samsung Smart Home Hub, rather than working off your Wi-Fi. And there's particular advantages with this. And let me just show you, we'll continue on with this. So this is, and I know this, let me just get this, we'll just come over here. So these are all devices that could connect to your Wi-Fi. And there are a lot of these devices. There's the Google Assistant that we have. Probably you've heard about all the Amazon Echo devices that we have. There's the Apple HomePod and all their devices that can be connected. And of course, there's Microsoft and there's Cortana that can all be connected. And all these devices can be connected into your Wi-Fi system. So your Wi-Fi system is going to get congested pretty easily. Now, with a smart home hub, it works a little differently. What would happen is you would connect directly to your router. You have all your devices that would be connected to your smart home hub, and this would be not by Wi-Fi, but by 2 different communication protocols. One's called Zigbee and the other's called Z-Wave. A couple of new terminologies for you. Zigbee and Z-Wave are not Wi-Fi, are the connecting terminology that connects these into the Internet of Things and back into your smart home hub. The other question that came up, and it's interesting, is that your Internet of Things devices that are connected by Zigbee and Z-Wave actually work like a mesh system. Those of you who have mesh routers, they actually will talk to one another. This has the advantage of giving you better coverage in your house. So if you're trying to do this with Wi-Fi and you're doing it with Wi-Fi devices, you may find some connecting problems. But what these devices do that are connected through your smart home hub, they actually work talking to one another, so they can help keep it all communicating together. So there are some advantages to that. So let's say, for example, you wanted to connect your Nest you wanted to connect your Nest thermostat and control there's lots of those around. Well, the Nest connects to your Wi-Fi. It connects to your Wi-Fi. But let's say you also wanted to do some light bulbs, all right? And the problem is, well, lots of people go and they'll buy some light bulbs and you can connect to Wi-Fi, which is fine. And then you have a little app on your phone and you can turn the light bulbs on and off. Problem with that is if your house has 60 light bulbs in it, your Wi-Fi is going to get pretty darn congested. So the hub actually works better, because if you look at this, this is a company called Senglid. They make a hub for light bulbs, and your hub would connect directly to your router, and you would have your light bulbs that would be switched on and off through the hub. So you actually wouldn't use your Wi-Fi. And Senglid is a big company, and their light bulbs are a lot cheaper if you buy them through the hub. And you'll see this is 2 light bulbs, and the hub was only $35.99. So these aren't that expensive, and they will all work through the hub. So the hub is really the way that you want to go. So if we look at the devices now, there's 3 companies that have Internet of Things devices, and we're going to talk about these. And these are the Amazon devices that we have. And these are the devices that I own. I own actually 2 Echo Shows. I own the 8-inch and the 5-inch. I have a bunch of Echo Dots around the house in most rooms. And I even have a Sonos speaker that has my Alexa on there. These can even act as a hub as well. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you the unique feature that these devices have, particularly the Amazon ones. The Google ones don't have this device. And I want you to sit back and think about this and how you might apply this to your own situation. What I'm going to show you here is the drop-in feature of these Echo devices. In other words, a lot of times when we want to provide care or talk to our loved ones may have dementia. They may not remember to call you, right? So with these devices, you can drop in on them. You actually don't have to, the other person doesn't have to initiate the call. You can drop in. And think about this for a minute as we go through this little video, and they're going to show you how this works, okay? This should play fine.
So first, let's dive into Communicate. So if you haven't already, you most likely will need to go into the Amazon application and set up all of these features so that you have functionality to them. So first, let's talk about Drop-In. Drop-In allows you to access other Echo devices in your home or other devices that have been linked to your account through the messaging service. So I could drop in on my parents' house into their kitchen and talk to them without them having to do anything. So let's go ahead and drop in on another room and see what they're doing. So we can either choose to drop in, or we could drop in by voice. Drop in on kids' room.
Hey guys, what are you doing? Sharing some gum. Sharing some gum.
Oh, that sounds fun. Have you cleaned your room yet?
Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna be clean. We'll go to the park, alright?
Alright, but what if we don't finish it? No. Hey. Me here. Bye. Hey.
All right, bye.
You here. Bye.
Next, you have Announce. So you could announce that you're home and it will broadcast a message to all the Echoes in your home. Here you could call somebody via the Echo Show. Here you could message. So I could message my daughter's Echo and then she could message me back and we have a one-to-one conversation like that. Send a message to Adele.
Okay, Brett. What's the message?
Thanks for cleaning your room.
Got it. Should I send it?
Yes.
Sending to Adele.
And then here you can show the contacts you have available. So let's go ahead and use the call feature, and we're going to do this by voice. Alexa, video call Randy Bristow.
Calling Randy Bristow's Alexa devices.
So now if he has multiple devices, like he has an Echo Show or he has the Alexa app on his phone, it would actually just call his phone and we can video chat that way as well, as long as he has linked his Amazon account. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Fine, how are you?
Good. So you're talking on your Echo Show.
Yes.
Did it ring your phone as well?
No. I just heard it on the Alexa show, and it said Brett Bristow is trying to talk to you.
Okay. And here on screen, I can move my little camera guy around, so if you want him to be in a different corner. All right, so on the Echo Show 5, I do have a 1 megapixel camera, and over on his Echo Show, he does have a 5 megapixel camera, but for the most part, this looks pretty good. All right, and then at any time, I could mute the video on screen, or I can use the mute switch. So here you can see the white icon indicating that they can't see me, and you can see that the camera has been turned off there. All right, Mr. Bristow, thanks for the help today.
You bet. Anytime. Good luck.
Okay, sounds good. See you later.
Bye-bye.
So that is how you make a video call. You can also call with voice, and you can also call mobile phone numbers in the US, Canada, and Mexico for free.
So that was the Echo Show device and the drop-in feature. And if you think about that, that's pretty powerful. I know that we in my home here, because I've got devices in all the rooms. My little 3-year-old grandson thought it was really cool. He likes to drop in on Grandpa's office and tell me that breakfast is ready. So upstairs in the kitchen, he's always dropping in on me and saying, "Grandpa, breakfast is ready." So you can drop in unannounced to the various rooms, or you could do this in another location, and it could be anywhere in the world, right? As long as they have an Echo device in their immediate area, then you could talk to them, check on them, and make sure they're okay. So I think this has, of course, there are lots of security features in here to prevent anyone else from doing that. But what I would say is this is a really big benefit, and we'll talk about how Mary could have used that.
So first, let's...
Now, the next one is, we'll talk a little bit about Google, because of course we talked about Amazon. It's only fair to give equal opportunity to Google. And this is their Google Home Nest service. And this is very interesting, and this is their the competition. Now, they don't have the drop-in feature on this, but it's interesting how it works. Watch how this works.
Dad, come back to the camera. What are you looking for?
There's a rock I showed you, but there's this one.
You showed me that already. The rock that you found.
It looks like a piece of wood.
Yes, the rock that looks like a piece of wood. I think it is a piece of wood, but that's...
It's not in... Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's in that bottom drawer. The one down to the right. Could it be in the attic? Look in your socks drawer. In your car? In the trunk? If you look down at your rug, is there a big lump? Could it be in a book that's actually like a little safe that you open up the book and the first page says dictionary and then it's hollowed out? You know how sometimes things end up in gloves? Might you have done that?
So that's interesting. Now I have to tell you that the one I did not show you is the Facebook portal, which is actually the third major one. I didn't put the Facebook portal in. All these, the Amazon Echo Show, the Google Nest, and also the Facebook portal will all this year have Zoom incorporated into them. They will all be Zoom enabled, as well as all the other features that I just showed you. In fact, the Facebook portal is already Zoom enabled. In fact, Chris and Jim Gould from Geeks on Tour were showing me that the other night, and we were doing a Zoom conference on their Facebook portal, which is sort of interesting. So as a communication tool, this is moving along very quickly, and that certainly will be interesting. And of course, Apple has their own devices. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. One thing you should remember about Alexa is Alexa will not call 911 because it's actually a federal regulation, because there is no way of identifying where you actually are with these devices. So you can't do you can't do 911 calling. There is one way around that. You can use, actually, Amazon makes a device called Echo Connect, which connects to your landline. So it will connect your peripheral device to actually a landline, and then when you call, it goes back to a specific location. But there is a way, and this is, when we talk about these Alexa devices, we talk about skills. They have actually, it's like an app, but these are skills that they have, and you can turn these on. And the skill that is interesting on Alexa is the Ask My Buddy app skill. Now this is popular. It's used an awful lot now. And this is, you set this up, you have to do some account permissions. And you set up an account. It's free, there's no charge. And it's, you can send up to 10 alerts per month and have up to 5 contacts. So if you had the Alexa devices through your house and you were in, and you needed to call someone in an emergency, with the app, you just ask them to call, and it's and what happens then is the 5 people that you have on your list, it would either phone them with an automated message, or it sends a text message to their phone. So when I set mine up, this is when I asked for help. It said, Ronald Brown, this is what my wife got on her phone, sent you an alert via da-da-da-da on Amazon Alexa. This alert is sent only if this person has asked for help. Please check on them now. So again, with these devices around the house, particularly with Mary, if we put them in her house, she would just need to call, and then she could have had up to 5 people that could have responded to her. Now, I'm not going to talk about home security because that's a huge topic, and I do a whole presentation on home security, so I don't think we're going to do that today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about social communication. A friend of mine, John Hamblin, did a pilot study in Nova Scotia in Canada, and it's a province, and he did about 30, I think he had about 40 Google Home devices put in seniors' homes who are isolated in rural areas and living by themselves. And he did the study for about 6 months, and then he went back, he trained everyone on them, and then went back and said, what do you think? And how did senior people respond to these devices? And they in the end, they found that using them for information was important. They adapted to their needs. And the other thing was socialization. These people who had these devices in their homes were much happier. They socialized with them. They also had the perception that they were safer. They really felt safer. They felt that they were entertaining. And sometimes these devices even tell you jokes. So there was humor involved. So all the people that had these devices in their homes had a very positive experience. And so I think there's something else that we need to think about is with these devices. What would I recommend for Mary? Well, the first thing Mary needs to do is she needs to purchase a cell phone. She does not have a cell phone, and what cell phone to get? I would probably ask her daughter, Meg, if she had an iPhone. If you're in the Apple system, there's a software called FaceTime, which is a video conferencing software, and it works very well. But it only works in the Apple system. So again, if Meg had an iPhone, then I would certainly recommend Mary get one, and then they could also communicate with FaceTime. Does she need a personal monitoring device such as a watch? She has a pacemaker in now. It's going to monitor her for atrial fibrillation. I'm not so sure that's necessary. I would put an Echo Show in her Arizona room, in the area there, like her living room, and I would have that drop-in enabled so that Meg could just drop in and say, Mom, how are you doing? Is everything okay? And that would be great. I would put Echo Dots in the other room so she could have communication if she got into trouble. I would put a Ring doorbell in for security and have that, because it would connect easily to these devices. And finally, I would put some security lights in and peripheral cameras around And you could probably install all this for under $1,000. And we could talk for a long time on how these connect, but I have all this device in my home and they all connect very well. And this would be a really good, and I would feel much better about Mary. I think she'd be a lot safer. And if we had planned this, if she had, remember I talked about have a plan. If you had a plan and you sort of go with it, then you'll be a lot better off. All right, that's it. I'm going to stop sharing and I will open up for any questions.
I've asked to unmute those that want to speak, so you don't have to.
Hello, Ron Brown. This is Mary Frances.
Hello.
I know nothing about technology. We're back to zero. I had a question that came to my mind. When you were talking about smart home hub could be wired into your router. And then I was thinking, well, if the computer connected to the router, if the computer connected to the router was not turned on, would that mean the smart home hub was not working, was not connected?
No, your computer could be turned off. It has nothing to do with the smart home hub.
That's what I assumed you were going to tell me, but I warned you in advance that I knew nothing about technology.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If you turn your computer off, it would have no effect on your smart home hub.
We see your mouth moving, but we can't hear you, John.
When people don't ask questions, I'm worried. I either nobody understood me or it was such a good presentation. I answered everyone's questions. I don't know which way it is.
Well, they are all smarter than Mary Frances.
I have to keep remembering to turn down the boom. I was going to ask Ron what he can tell us about in terms of these watches. You know, we're talking $300 to $400. What do insurance companies do? Do they provide some reimbursement for getting something that's a health related that would make it a little bit easier on our pockets?
Absolutely. And I gave that in the first presentation. I put those slides in. And certainly you should check with your healthcare provider, because this not only saves lives. With Mary, for example, if she had had a watch and not had to go to the hospital and have her hip, and all the things that she went through, it would save their healthcare provider a lot of money. And they understand that. And so a lot of these companies now provide, they will rebate you or pay part or all of these devices. They're going to work. They work very, and so you should check with your insurance company on that. And I might, it is true that it is $300 or $400, but if you, the other way you have to sort of look at this, we have to hedge our bets as we get older. And I think if you had a atrial fibrillation that you didn't know and you had a stroke and you ended up in the hospital, you may lose your ability to drive. You may lose your ability to go back in your home and have to go into extended care. There are a lot of other that's going to cost you big dollars. So yes, it is $300 or $400 for a watch, but could this prevent something that's going to cost a lot more money than that? And that's one of the things I think everyone has to think about. And also, the other thing is, of course, everyone knows about this last year when in the post-COVID era, or even in COVID times. Look at all the people that were so isolated that lived in extended or managed care places, and they couldn't see their loved ones. Sometimes they're locked in rooms for 6 months and couldn't come out. I mean, as we move forward in the post-COVID era, I think more and more people are going to want to stay at home. They don't want to, we should try at all costs to stay in our areas that we feel comfortable with, and we could use these devices to accomplish that goal. And I think that's what we need to be looking at, so that we can stay where we are and we don't have to end up in places which could be not so nice. Ira.
Yes. What about wires that I saw hooked up there? Is there a lot of wires hooked up to that? Or is it mostly working off of Wi-Fi? Or is it that Z or that other? I saw that involved in there. And I was wondering, well, where's these wires? He's only going to hook up a couple wires there, and then it does all that from that hub?
I'm not sure.
Wires, where you
wires.
connect things to the router and to your Wi-Fi, or you connect it. How do you connect that? Do you connect the Wi-Fi just like you do on your phone when you on your router for your laptop and stuff? Just go in there and tell it to connect to your Wi-Fi, and it picks it up.
Right. So if you have that smart home hub, it doesn't do Wi-Fi, right? So suppose you have the Samsung smart home hub. So what you do is you would plug that directly into your router, into one of the ports on your router. And then it creates, and then the devices that you would connect to it connect not through Wi-Fi, they connect directly to that smart home hub, and they use different protocol, and these devices either connect using Zigbee or Z-Wave. And you'd have an app on your phone that which you'd be able to manage and turn all these devices on or off. It usually works as an app through the phone.
So there
right?
wouldn't be a lot of wires. Wouldn't be a lot of wires.
There's no wires. In fact, the Samsung, there's a bunch of different versions of the Samsung Smart Home Hub. The latest one, the one I have, actually has an option. You can actually connect the Samsung Smart Home Hub to Wi-Fi. You can actually connect it into your system Wi-Fi. It doesn't have to be wired. I don't recommend that. I would recommend you plugging it in, because I don't see any advantage in that, but just plug it into your router, and then you can connect all these devices to it. And it takes the stress off your Wi-Fi, because if you have 60 light bulbs in your house and you want them all turning on and off, then you're gonna have 60 devices connected to your Wi-Fi, right? So it's a lot of stress on your Wi-Fi. So that's why the hubs work better.
Okay. And also, did you give a price on that Z thing? That Z.
The smart home hub that I showed you, the Sanglid, the one that did the light bulbs, you got 2 light bulbs and the hub for $35, right? The Samsung.
I was talking about the Z. I was talking about the Z. What is it?
The Zigbee or Z-Wave. That's the Zigbee and Z-Wave are just that's the frequencies. That's the instead of Wi-Fi, we call it Zigbee and Z-Wave. That's just the protocols that the devices are using to communicate.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Bob, you're muted.
Can't hear you.
I have an Amazon show. So actually, and that's got a built-in hub, but that actually works through Wi-Fi.
Yep. And the one I showed you in the picture there does have a hub and can use Zigbee and Z-Wave and connect to it. Yeah, they do that as well. But remember, the other thing that's interesting is when you're connecting to these devices through Zigbee and Z-Wave, is they talk to one another. So if you have a bunch of devices in your home that are all wanting to turn on or off or whatever they're doing, is that they talk to one another to make sure all these actions get done. It's not like Wi-Fi. So if your light bulb goes on and off Wi-Fi, it's only going to do the light bulb. It's not going to communicate with all your other devices and help you, right? So again, it would depend on how your Wi-Fi is set up in your house. So that's why the hub is a better way to go.
With the show, quite often I might be in the bedroom and I want to turn on the light in the kitchen, and it's the one in the bedroom that's going to talk to me and say, okay, but it's actually the hub on the show, which is in the kitchen, that's doing the work.
That's
but they're
right.
talking to each other, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. Yes, Everett.
Yeah, I think these portable devices like watches or light bulbs or whatever that's not wired to something must be communicating to those hubs by radio, which is wireless. That's the only radio connection you have. From there on, like you say, it's wired to wherever you want it to go. So there is a wireless connection there, but it's not the Wi-Fi that we normally use for connecting computers.
Different frequency or whatever. Yeah, exactly. But it's important because if you are planning this and you're going to go and you're going to start, the worst thing that would happen is you go out and say, well, I'm going to put some light bulbs in, and you spend maybe 40 or 50 bucks on each light bulb, right? And then you hook it to your Wi-Fi. Well, that's an expensive way of doing it. Much better to get the Sengled, hub. You got 2 light bulbs in a hub, and then just buy your light bulbs for the hub. A much better way of doing it than then going and buying, individual bulbs that connecting each one to your system. You're going to see a lot this year about these peripheral devices like the Show, like the Echo Show. This is going to be big stuff this year. And the other one is the Facebook portal. If you're a Facebook person, the portal is really sort of an interesting device. It's and then of course there's the Google Nest Home Hub. So these are all going to be Zoom enabled. So again, you can imagine somebody in aged care or someone in somebody or a loved one you're taking care of. It'll be so easy because they'll be able to use Zoom just to call you, or the drop-in feature or whatever. But these will all be Zoom enabled, as all your televisions will be as well. Zoom announced a couple of weeks ago, or at their Zoomtopia conference, that there will be a device. There's actually a number of manufacturers, 6 or 7 of them now, that will be bringing a device that will connect to your television. And so you'll now be doing Zoom calls on your television. So lots of interesting, and of those of you who saw my APCUG talk I did on navigating the post-COVID era, I had videos of all that stuff in there, and it showed how it all will be working. So it's pretty exciting. There's a lot of technology coming this year that will help us stay connected with people, right? Like staying connected with our loved ones, staying connected with people who you want to care about. That's what we need to use these devices for. So lots of exciting stuff.
Bob Costello. Okostya. I can't pronounce your last name, Bob.
Go ahead.
I'll just say Avast. Avast. Okay. All these communications that I can have, like he's talking about, if I get it done and put it in my house, all these communications, and since they are all on Wi-Fi and they're connected to my phone, I'll be covered through Avast.
You'll need Avast Omni to protect you. Omni is a combination of hardware and software. And it's the hardware part that's the hub that all these smart devices will go through, and that will monitor all those smart devices to make sure they don't start to misbehave. But that's a whole different topic.
Same thing as that Echo that Ron's talking about, or
no. This is strictly security related, and it monitors how well behaved those smart devices are.
Okay.
And when they start to misbehave, that's right.
Yeah. Right. That's what I need to know.
That's Avast Omni is the product.
I've got it written down. In fact, I was checking it out, and I tried it on the Wi-Fi to see if it would do it, see if I was my router was able, but it wouldn't do it on the Wi-Fi. I had to do it from my computer that's wired in, I guess, and I've never tried it yet to see if that Omni would work with the router I have. And my router is only about 2-3 years old.
It should.
So it should work with it.
It should.
Okay.
When you sign up for it, the first thing that you'll have is something that will test to see whether or not it's compatible. If you don't have a compatible router, you won't wind up having to spend money to purchase the product.
Okay. So that works right in with what Ron's saying here. So I'd have two devices.
That's
I'd
the
have the good
protection
hub,
end.
and then I have the hub that's going to protect me, or the Omni is going to protect me. Yeah.
Right.
So that's all I care about. Security first. These hackers, they can get in anywhere.
I wanted to point out I've been putting links in chat, quite a few actually, talking about fall detection. Ron mentioned you need an iPhone to set it up. That's absolutely correct. There's a new feature in the setup process that allows a family member who has an iPhone to set it up. So my mother has an old iPhone 5, I can't even remember, 5S, whatever it was. Can't set up an Apple Watch, so I could set it up on her behalf and give it to her. And there's a sale on Apple Watch. Now I mostly know Apple Watches, and I have a Fitbit as well, but there's a sale on Apple Watches at Micro Center. But if you want just the fall detection, the Apple Watch Series 4 and higher, I believe, do the fall detection. The Series 5 is about the same price as 6. It's not worth it. But the SE is actually a good in between. It doesn't do the O2 blood measurement. The SE doesn't. But I think Micro Center had it for $229 or something like that. $259 right now. So save a little money if you can.
I have to tell you that this last year when I gave a talk at one of the resorts, there was about 200 people in the audience, and afterwards I had my little portable ECG monitor. You know, the little one that I did the fingers on. I showed you that. You know, the last time I did the presentation, I went and so I said, "Who wants an ECG after the show or the talk?" Right? And so we had about 40 or 50 people lined up. Coming up they wanted me to do this little ECG thing. So in the group of about, I guess there were 40. Out of the group of 40, I picked up 3 atrial fibrillations. They just put their fingers down and it said atrial fibrillation. These people did not know they had atrial fibrillation, so they're at extremely high stroke risk, right? And there was one guy, he sort of came up, real older man, and he looked pale. He looked awful. And I said, "How do you feel?" And he said, "Well, I'm dizzy and I'm just not feeling very good." His pulse was 38. So he went to hospital in an ambulance, right? And these are just people at the show that I'm at. They're at my presentation. I'm not there as a doctor. They're just there just listening to me. And so, in our age group and looking around, I think we're all there. This is common. This stuff is really, really, really common. And as a physician, I can tell you, when I'm standing around the hospital bed and, dad's had a major stroke and the family's all looking at me saying, "Why did he have a stroke?" In a lot of cases, it's undiagnosed atrial fibrillation, right? And so that's preventable. And that's what we really want to be doing, is we want to prevent this from happening. So again, that's why it's so important.
Juanita, was that a question in chat for me privately, or did you want to ask that to the group?
No, I wanted to ask that to the doctor. I'm a sewer, and I recently was shown a magnetic pin cushion that you can put around your wrist. Would that hurt any kind of watch or any of these devices of which I should want to buy?
Sorry, you want to put something on your wrist?
Yeah, a magnetic pin cushion that holds pins whenever you're sewing.
Oh, for sewing. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not generally. Magnets. I mean, magnets used to be a problem with computers, but I don't think so anymore. We have magnets on the back of iPhones. You put that magnet on the back to hold it in a holster or a device. So I mean, I don't think the magnetization anymore is a big deal.
That's low magnification, low magnetate.
Magnetation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not
I don't think that'd be.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think it'd be a problem.
Terry had a question that he sent to me, but I think he meant to ask you, Ron. I went ahead and asked to unmute. Does your microphone work, Terry? Good. You might ask it better.
My microphone's on. I'm just trying to make sure I don't cause a lot of background noise. No, my question was, you had made a statement early in the presentation that you had heard that the watches that would maybe assist diabetics might be coming out the end of the year soon. I was just kind of curious, any more details on that, if you had any.
The technology, I think in my first presentation, I showed you the technology that was that came out. Came out in January. They actually figured out how to do this, and they proved the technology and got it FDA certified. So, but it's a big machine, right? So they have to take the machine and make it so it works in a watch. And that is what all the big companies are doing like crazy, because it's the holy grail. It will make somebody very, very, very wealthy, right? And there probably will be a number of people. Now there's about 3 or 4 patents that I was reading that people have already filed patents for this device to come out at the end of the year. Now none of these are Apple or Google or anything like that. I suspect what you'll see by the end of the year, you'll see some prototypes and some people testing the water that might not be, Apple's they want to get it right. When they bring it out, it'll work 100%. It'll be FDA approved. It'll be rock solid. Apple doesn't get into the early stuff. They want it to be really so, and I think Google will do the same thing. So I think what you'll see by the end of the year, you'll see some early adopters, some early ones coming out. What the price or how they work, I don't know yet. But this will be this is the future, and it's exciting because it is going to be it will really change the whole management of diabetes. All those glucometers, all the finger prick testing, all that will all be gone. It'll all be gone. This is just so big that but they want to get it right, I guess. So we'll see what happens. But I hope by the end of the year you'll see you'll see some of these devices coming out.
Sounds like it'll be faster than any kind of a vaccine.
Yeah, well, who knows? That's for sure. Yeah.
So
the other thing that was interesting was we get a lot of talk about COVID and measuring your oxygen level. I'm surprised no one's asking me that. That's a hot topic that everyone wants to ask about. And it's so there is actually a case where these could be quite valuable. And if you had an asymptomatic COVID test and you were positive for COVID and you were isolating at home for the 2 weeks, what can happen is your oxygen levels can go down quite significantly quite quickly before you start to get sick. And of course, by the time you do get sick and you start feeling shortness of breath, you end up in the emergency department and maybe on a respirator, and all the bad things that happen, right? So it may be that an indication for wearing the watch would be helpful in that situation, in that it could actually, you could follow it along and watch your oxygen levels and see what happened each day. So that might be a unique application for using them. I thought it's sort of interesting. And I know people are buying them for that. Now, there was one study that came out, and it was a small study that came out, and it was a predictor study on whether you had COVID or not. And they measured your blood pressure, your pulse, and your oxygen level by some of these devices. And they had 4 or 5 measurements of different things. And they said they were able to predict whether you had COVID, 70% accuracy, right? Now that was a very small study. No one's repeated that. Do not think that buying a watch can predict this, but it's interesting that it may be in the future that we will be able to come up with some sort of analysis of stuff that we can do at home, measure pulse, temperature, blood pressure, I don't know, oxygen level, and come up with an algorithm that would actually be predicting. It would be beneficial. And I think everyone's looking at that as well, but we don't have that yet. Yes, Ira.
Yeah, on that, on your blood pressure and diabetes and all that stuff there, and you're making sure you got enough oxygen and everything. When that watch reads that and says, hey, you're in trouble. Now, where does that go? Does that go back to the manufacturer and they send it to your doctor, or does that go right straight to the hospital? How they linked into that?
It depends on what we're talking about. It doesn't do that for the oxygen level. The oxygen level.
But I mean, if you had a heart attack or something, like for your heart,
no,
like
it doesn't.
Talk about the beginning.
No, you can't look at it like that. So a couple of things that you got to be clear on this is that these devices don't continually monitor you. In other words, it's not a device that if you had a medical device and your doctor hooked you up, it would continually monitor your heartbeat for a couple of. So these devices don't do continuous monitoring. If you develop symptoms, if you become dizzy, then you can actually turn the device on by hitting the little button on the crown, and it will monitor it, okay? And it will do your ECG, record it, it does all that. And that you can have sent to your doctor, or you can have sent to your healthcare, whatever healthcare provider, right? When you hit the button and you actually are doing the monitoring and doing whatever it is, then it will send it to whoever you want in that situation.
Okay.
But these devices are not doing it on a 24/7, all right? That's not how they work.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, that answered my question. Oh, I got one for you, Mr. Two Ball. You got your phone
I'll
on?
try.
Okay. I did that and I sent it back to you. I submitted it.
I got it.
Did you get it?
I got it.
That's all I care about. I did it right then. Okay.
All right. Well, then, do you guys want to have your meeting now, or any questions?
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, Bob, I'll see you in the morning, eh?
Yes, sir. See you in the morning.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bob Costaccia.
Yeah. All right.
Right?
Bye now.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video.
Okay.